So a few months ago, I ended up doing a Twin Mirror playthrough on this YouTube channel. Now that some time has passed and I've been able to reflect on the particular experience I had of playing Twin Mirror, I am ready to give a short but precise review. All right, first of all, let's get this out of the way. Is Twin Mirror a 10 out of 10 video game? Absolutely not. From what I've been learning with my time dabbling into more indie games this year, not every game necessarily has to be a 10 out of 10. Some games are just merely an enjoyable 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, which is still too high for Twin Mirror. What I am trying to say is that sometimes it's quite nice to have a gourmet meal like a filet mignon, and then other times you can't help but want the armadillo meat that Taco Bell serves. Let's just dive into what I actually liked about Twin Mirror. First of all, it is one of Dontnod Entertainment's games, which, if you are familiar with Dontnod Entertainment, they are the studio behind the Life is Strange series. Now, this game is different from the Life is Strange games in that, for one, the game doesn't star a traumatized teenager. Instead, it stars a socially awkward, middle-aged man. His name is Sam. He's a journalist, and he used to work for the local newspaper back in his hometown. However, coming out with a story that essentially affected the town's mind that a lot of people depended on for work, Sam ended up skedoodling out of Basswood, only to return 2 years later to attend the funeral of a coworker and friend named Nick. Now, the premise of the game starts off with Sam attending Nick's wake, but it dives further once Sam ends up getting drunk, believes that he might have murdered somebody in the midst of his drunken stupor, only to investigate the town and find out that Nick has been working on a secret investigation about someone within the town of Basswood running an undercover drug trade. The story does sound generic on top of the game looking generic. However, as I like to say, it's the journey. For one, I did like the fact that this game felt like I was essentially playing a CW drama. And what really drives that CW drama feeling is the fact that this all takes place within a small town, like a very rural small town. We're talking about the people that occupy this is you, your brother, your cousin, your mom, your dad, your other cousin, and then your cousin's girlfriend, who's sleeping with the other cousin. Twin Mirror had this thing where it was not only an external conflict with, uncovering the secret drug trade, but also this internal conflict of Sam being this objective, factual-based person, and how that greatly contrasts and even clashes with this, from what I've gathered from the game, this imaginary friend who's also like a projection of his conscience that symbolizes the more empathetic and sympathetic side of him. The side that can actually connect with people. Like, this guy is backseat gaming him on how to talk to people and make them feel better. Now, does being factual and objective always works to Sam's advantage? It doesn't, because as you interact with characters like Anna, you can sense that depending on what choice that you make that falls in line with it, it tends to rub her the wrong kind of way. Whereas sometimes when you're trying to listen to Mr. Andy Dick over here and tell you to just empathize or to do what feels like the right thing, such as when he wanted us to tell Joan to go back home because Joan was planning to run away. There are times when being objective, or rather being truthful, does actually play a part, because that actually stops Joan from running away from home, since all she wanted was just for somebody to be honest with her about what's going on. Throughout the game, there isn't particularly one side that's being favored or one side that's being disadvantaged. If anything, the game treats, being objective and being subjective as practically yin and yang. I guess yin and yang? Neither one outweighs the other. They're both required in order to be a general whole person, which is why there is a part in the game where Sam kind of delves inside of himself, delves inside of his consciousness in order to essentially rescue Mr. Andy Dick over here. However, though, what I do not like about the game is there is story content locked behind the two sides. There are two endings that you can achieve in this game. One is one ending, of course, and then the other one is the canon ending, the true ending. I don't like the fact that choice-based games do that shit where even though you make all of these choices and stuff, at the end of the day, a lot of it usually tends to not actually matter. You would think that these choice-based games would make every ending canon. But then again, I guess it would be kind of wild and ridiculous. But I didn't like that because I ended up going with one ending that had the officer as the antagonist. Come to find out, the other ending is the canon ending that features someone else as being the actual mastermind of the drug trade. And to be fair, I can say that if you were following the clues and if you were going along with the entire theme of the game, which is, a small town, not that many people care to move in. So like, why the hell are people moving in rather than moving out to search for better opportunities? Just in general, not having much to offer, you'll have an inkling of who the villain to the other ending is going to be. But that being said, though, I don't like how one ending is tied to essentially accepting your empathetic side, and the other side is essentially Sam accepting his objective side more. If you ask me, it felt like this game should have just been a linear story. It just didn't make any sense to just have two separate endings. It certainly wasn't what the dialogue was giving me. And speaking of the dialogue, that is one other thing that I definitely do not particularly care for in a Dontnod game. One, how incredibly bland Sam the character is when he talks. Because this guy is just essentially just restating what the mission purpose is at all times, or just stating the obvious. There's no depth to his character. And that right there is where I feel like the game really could have strengthened its focus on more, is the tension between Sam in the town of Basswood and Sam's lack of a desire to return home. I feel like they really should have delved into that and just kind of made it where perhaps in order for you to find clues that lead to Nick's murder, like Sam has to actually befriend the townspeople, despite the townspeople, wanting to throw the middle finger up at him. But no, instead, Sam has the personality of a wet piece of bread, to the point that the other characters were kind of memorable to some extent. But even then, with the other characters, it's not like they get a lot of focus. The only people that do get some kind of focus is Joan, because of her being Nick's daughter, and Anna, who is Nick's ex-fiance girlfriend. And going back to the dialogue, I don't know who wrote some of the dialogue for Anna, but there was like this one line that she said that sounded like the girl was reading Shakespearean shit or something. It was like, why do you darken up on my doorstep? Or something like that. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Do I look like a bard?
Why'd it take so long for you to darken my doorstep?
What person that eats beans on toast wrote this dialogue? Overall, though, if I had to give the game a number, I would personally give it a 5. It didn't really do anything defining. It didn't really push the envelope on any particular themes or topics. But as far as it being an enjoyable experience that only lasted 3 or 4 hours, I don't regret playing the game. But overall, that is my review for Twin Mirror. Take care, stay safe, and stay healthy.